Hello, and welcome to the Dear Nikki podcast, where I do my best to answer your questions or complaints or struggles that you're having in the user research field. And as you can tell today, we're doing things a little bit differently. Okay, even adjusting as we go, right? So as you can see, I'm on video. And the reason that I am on video, the reason that I'm doing things a little bit differently with the podcast is because I want to start posting all of these on YouTube as well, because I know a lot of you have mentioned that it's so much easier for you to browse and watch and listen to content on YouTube. So, good news. These will all go on YouTube. I'm also considering making all of the podcast episodes free. So, yeah, some changes coming along here, and as we move into 2025, which is just incredible because 2025, I'm still in like 2019. So, yeah, um, what this means essentially same kind of vibes. I'm going to have a few more guests on the podcast as well, because I think that there's a lot to learn from other researchers. And I don't want to just be talking by myself because it's not as interesting sometimes to just hear me talk as it is to get perspectives from other researchers. If you are interested in hanging out on the podcast and being featured in an episode, please just let me know. I'm not only looking for seasoned podcasters, I'm looking for any user researchers who would like to share their stories, because I think everybody has their own unique perspective that they can share. So feel free to email me. It's nikki@userresearchacademy.com. And all that information will be in the show notes so that you can, just shoot me an email if you're interested. And I'm all about, just having a conversation. It's not going to be a interrogation. Anyways, today what I wanted to share with you in particular is something that I've been noodling around with in my mind. And that is the future of user research and what it is going to look like. Well, what it might look like, because just like we know, we can't predict the future, right? And I wanted to talk about that today, especially as we're, moving into 2025 and things are changing, and we can see that. I've been in the field now for about 10, 11 years, and I've seen the ebb and flow. So I've seen layoffs come, I've seen, teams get smaller, teams get bigger, teams get smaller, teams get bigger, right? I've seen things change within the field and things evolve within the field. And there's always an ebb and flow no matter what. If you look at any kind of industry, if you look at just like the world in general, if you look at politics, if you look at the economy, there's always that ebb and flow. But I do think that something is slightly different this time with how user research will continue to evolve. I don't think it's one of those normal or standard ebb and flows that we've had in the past, because I remember I went through layoffs, and it was another great layoff, right? Quite a few years ago. And then things bounced back and nothing fundamentally changed, right? That's kind of the cycle that I've been seeing. Yeah, things evolved, tools came out, different methods were more popular than others. The pandemic hit, therefore we had things like diary studies, which suddenly became so much more popular. Remote research, that really evolved. Although I was doing remote research way back when, but there's something distinctly different. And I'm not 100% sure what it is, but I want to talk through my thoughts of how user research is going to continue to evolve. And then based on that, my Substack is going to evolve in that way, right? So I say write a lot. I listened back to some of my podcast episodes and also a conference that I went on. I do write so much. So I'm trying not to, but the more you focused on something, the more it tends to come up. Pink elephant, right? Pink elephant. Anyways, so the way that I see user research evolving is actually quite exciting. Well, it might be quite exciting. It might be scary. It is scary, but I think as researchers, what's going to happen to us is we are going to have to step into a more strategic role, a much more strategic role. I have a feeling that democratization of research, I hate calling it lower level. level research because like usability testing is not lower level, but sometimes we think about it as lower level kind of research. It's easier to teach to people. Maybe that's why we think about it in that way. But I think that we are going to start stepping away from things like usability testing, which is more easily democratized. Now, I'm not a huge fan of democratization. However, I think that we've fought the good fight. We've tried really hard, but with AI and with how things are changing, I truly believe that as researchers, we're going to have to take a step back from more simplistic usability testing or even more simplistic tasks as researchers. That might also include things like surveys, right? So, more of the evaluative based research methods, I think we're going to have to start taking that step back and either democratizing it. So, sharing the responsibility within our teams. Or I think AI tools, especially with like unmoderated usability testing, I think that will change dramatically because I think I'm not saying AI will do a good or a bad job because I have no idea, but I think that we are going to start seeing that shift where those types of tasks, especially repetitive ones, are going to be taken over by AI or democratized and shared within responsibilities of other colleagues within our team. So designers running a unmoderated usability test on their design alone. Now, again, I'm not commenting on whether this is good or bad because I'm not sure what it will look like. If there is a way where we can still maintain rigor and still maintain quality within these types of tasks, but offload them in a way, then that's great. I think there's going to be quite a big learning curve. And this is where I think user research is going to start to step into that more strategic thought partner role. So, what do I mean by that? First, I think we're going to have to learn how to democratize or offload those tasks in a quality way. And I'm not 100% sure what that looks like yet, but I'm hoping that maybe we can partner with colleagues, partner with AI tools in a way that enables those tools or those colleagues to efficiently, effectively do user research that still has quality, right? So those unmoderated, sorry, I have a bit of a cold. Those unmoderated tests, maybe some more simple usability tests, maybe even survey writing, right? Using things like benchmarking metrics, so UX metrics like the UX Lite, the SEQ, the SAS, confidence ratings. So offloading those types of tasks in a rigorous way. And I think part of the role of researchers is going to be how do we strategically do that at our organizations so that we can start to focus on being in that more strategic place of working alongside business. So something that I realized here in Jersey, it's a bit of a bubble. It's a weird market. It's like I've never seen anywhere else. And I am in Jersey, a user research consultant. That's my title here in Jersey. I am not User Research Academy, Nikki. I am not, a mentor, a coach. I'm not any of those things. I'm a user research consultant here in Jersey. And what I've realized is people have no idea what I'm talking about. And they are having a really hard time making that connection between how user research is going to serve the business. And that is people who are, it's a low maturity country in general. And it's people who are very unaware and uneducated on user research. Right? A lot of other places, we have quite a lot of education where people either know or think they know what user research is. I just realized I have no idea how much time I have on this. So here we go. So with that being said, though, I am actually changing my title. I don't know exactly what it's going to be yet, but it's going to be more of a strategic consultant, right? So I've looked at several different, and this is within the scope of Jersey. So take that with a grain of salt, because I've looked at a few different people who don't do what I do, but do maybe something similar. And there's things like business strategist consultant, or digital transformation consultant, or digital strategist consultant. And, you know, some of those names are a bit cringy for me, because I feel as though they're just buzzwords strung together in a way that sounds good but means nothing. However, we bring meaning to our roles, whatever we are called. And so with that, I actually think that's kind of what we need to do in general, because that's kind of where our role is going in the future. We are going to hopefully be sitting with business and strategizing what the business needs to be thinking about in the future. We are going to be sitting down and talking through the business needs, the business goals, and what types of research could serve the business to understand and reach those goals in a faster, more efficient way. And one huge thing that I think is going to change is we are going to, I talk a lot about how we should not ask people about future behavior. Would you go to the gym? Yeah, of course I would. Would you order food from our app? For sure. Right. People, there are two things in there. People are really bad at predicting their future behavior, one. And the second thing, social desirability bias makes people say yes to things that they might not actually do in the future. So when I ask people, would you buy this? They might say yes, because they want to make me feel good. They want to look good. Everybody wants to be happy. When it comes time for them to take out their credit card, they're not going to actually pay, right? They've said it, but they can't predict that future behavior. And they also are more inclined to lie. But that's okay, because that's who we are as humans. It's something that happens. It's an unconscious, subconscious bias that we're dealing with. Like, how many times have you told a white lie, right? Oh, you look great in that. I mean, I would never tell somebody that, because, well, maybe actually I would do, depending on how close I am to them. But, how many times have you told that white lie? But so I'm always a huge proponent of the past is the best predictor of future behavior. And I think that is still the case. I'm not saying that that's not the case. However, I believe that as researchers, we are going to have to start helping companies with like future casting, with looking into the future and understanding, where can they be better? And what I mean by better, and this is a big distinction. So everybody, there's so much software out there, and everybody's just trying to do the same thing better. Right? You see, say for example, you see Asana, you see ClickUp, you see Monday.com, you see all these different project management tools, like just all of these different tools, which are essentially the same thing, but each company is just trying to do the same exact thing better. And I think as user researchers, we actually need to stop thinking about how does our organization do the same thing as everybody else better, and rather looking into more innovative spaces. So rather than the same thing, but better, what's something new that we can do that disrupts? So I think we are going to move into more of that disruptive, innovative, growth-based space. And I know I just threw a bunch of jargon at you, and I'm sorry, it's like the only way that I can describe it. But I think that there will be a limit to companies of, okay, we can only do so much to be the best project management tool, because guess what? There's going to be a new one that starts that everybody's going to be like, oh, well, that one might be better, right? There's that vibe of like, oh, well, ClickUp's not really doing it for me. They're doing great, but there's this new one and it's like less money and it's a one-time payment rather than a subscription. And maybe I'm going to try that for a little bit. And so ClickUp's like, well, we got to do the same thing better, better, better. And so I'm here saying, actually, as researchers, how can we help our organizations find those new things that we're missing, the gaps in the experiences, the gaps in the products, the gaps in the services, the gaps in the features, right? And really diving into, so it's still diving into people's unmet needs and pain points, just on a more innovative level, on a more disruptive level. Thinking about, I always bring this up because it's just so true. Thinking about the iPhone, it really did, or any sort of smartphone, it really did disrupt that space because it looked into, it's almost like those unknown unknowns that we have to get at as researchers. I think that needs to be our space where we start doing our best to uncover unknown unknowns. That's a really difficult thing to do. And that is very generative research. That is the strategic research, I think, because unknown unknowns allow us to find those new things so that we're not just trying to churn out more features, faster features. We're not feature factories. We're no longer doing that with our teams. Instead, we're saying, let's not just try and be better at what everybody else does. What are the things that people aren't doing that still serve the customers and the business? What are those unknown unknowns? There goes a fly. Sorry. That's what I get for having video. And I think that is where we need to step into. And that is strategy. That is innovation. That's disruption. That's growth. And it's bringing the companies into a completely different space. And I've done this before. I've quite a few times without really knowing what I was doing or differentiating it necessarily. I was like, yeah, it's just user research. But I think it's very strategic research and very transformative research. And so, for instance, I was working at a social media company, and this is a little bit less of like a super disruptive unknown, but we were speaking with our clients, our customers, and something came up about the influencer market and how not a lot of people at that time were helping influencers create contracts with businesses and streamlining that process. It was a very arduous, manual, tough process for influencers back then. I think that there are a lot of tools now, but that came up and that was a super unknown, right? We weren't even thinking about that as an organization because we were so focused on our current customers and their experience. And I'm not saying we threw that experience out the window and focused solely on influencers, but with that research in that organization, that actually prompted us to create an innovation team. And within that innovation team, we explored those unknown unknowns. And one of them was influencer market contracting and that whole process for influencers. And we actually created a product for that. And that was super new. It's a new space, it's a new audience. So that's also another thing. Is there an audience there that your company hasn't even thought about? Is there a new space for you to step into that's, it doesn't have to be, we were doing social media marketing and now we're doing food delivery. That's not what I mean, but is there an adjacent step that you can make, something next to you that you're not seeing yet, that the company's not seeing? I think doing that type of research, and that's very discovery, that's very foundational. I think doing that type of research and tying it to business goals, and this is why we need to sit with the business to understand what their needs are, what their goals are, and then use that and the unknown unknowns to get them to whatever step they're trying to get to. And that is also why I think we need to step away. You can't be running 2, 3 usability tests and then sitting with business and then doing this really discovery-based research and trying to balance all these things. I mean, I've tried to do that before and it wasn't great. Right? It was nearly impossible. And that's why I think that offloading some of that other research in the best way that we can and focusing on moving towards the strategic space will get us there. It will get us that seat at the table, and it will get us into a place where companies will value us more as thought partners, as strategists. So I think we need to make that movement. And I know that quite a few of you might be at organizations that don't like generative research or don't believe in generative research. I was at those companies too. Start doing it. Start doing it in the background. That's what I did is I just started like we think sometimes we get stuck at this in this mindset of user researchers that people should come to us and then we should respond to that request. We should respond to that intake document. We should respond to the question that stakeholders have. That's one way. That's reactive research. I'm talking about proactive research. I'm talking about research that we say this is important. And if you don't feel like you can say that, do it in the background. Because I started doing research, generative research in the background as much as I possibly could on top of my other responsibilities. And then I could present something that was super tangible and really, really helpful to the organization. And everybody was like, oh, when did you do that? Oh, that's interesting. How did you get that information? I was like, well, guess what? Generative research. Maybe we should invest in this. So if you can't do it as your day to day, try and do it in that background space. Or something else that I did is for every single usability test that I had, say you normally run 45-minute usability tests, start running them for 60 minutes. And in the first 15 minutes, do generative research. That's something that I kind of snuck in there. Or if you're doing them for 45 minutes and you can't extend them to 60, take 10 minutes and do generative research and then, just make everything work within that 45 minutes and take the first 10 minutes to do generative research and then go and do the usability test. So I really think it is about moving into that space where we're really looking at unknown unknowns and sitting with the business and saying, hey, what about influencers? What about this space? You want to do project management better, sure, but let's not just do the same thing everybody's doing and try and do it better because that's the rat race that we're never going to win because another company, another software will come up. What's something different? What's something that's missing? What are those unknown unknowns? And how can they catapult us as a business into reaching our goals, which are usually growth and revenue? That's why these things work so well together, because growth doesn't necessarily come from doing the same thing over and over again, but better. Growth actually comes from new ideas, new things. It's connecting the dots for people in a way that they haven't connected them before. That's where growth comes from. And so I think that we need to help facilitate and be dot connectors for our organizations. And I think that will bring us into a much more valuable space that's not only more useful and tangible for the company, but I think it's going to be quite rewarding for us as a field because we'll kind of up level. I feel like this is I know we talk about the user research reckoning and everything getting ruined, but I think this is a space for us to up level. So that being said, I'm going to start evolving my Substack and this podcast, my content towards that more strategic space. So I'm going to be talking a lot more in my User Research Academy Substack about more advanced methods, about creating methods, about uncovering those unknown unknowns, about how you step into that strategic space. Because I want to empower all of you to start that process now. And that doesn't mean that you never have to do a usability test again. You probably will, right? It's going to take some time. But I want this content to bring you to that next level. And if you are looking for some help, because I used to be a solo researcher. I know a lot of people are solo researchers, and it can be really quite difficult to train your team. And if you need help with that, I actually created an entirely new Substack for product people. So it's user research for product people. And what I'm trying to do with that Substack is become just a Substack of training, literally training for product people on user research from me. And so in the hope that I'm making the lives of solo user researchers helpful because they can send product people there knowing, okay, hey, you're going to get some good stuff from here. You're not going to go to a question bank that's telling you to ask users, how much would you love this product? You're going to this Substack, which I know will teach you how to ask open-ended questions. So I'm going to be putting content that's like very 101 content. That's content that you would train your stakeholders with. I'm going to be creating that for you in that Substack, and that Substack will evolve over time. And I'm hoping to make it really easy for you to send to your stakeholders and say, hey, go via these trainings, go look at this content, and then you can do a usability test, right? So that Substack, I'm going to link to that as well, will hopefully help with some researchers who don't have the capacity to train, for you to start letting go of that space and some of those tasks and start focusing on your career and moving forward as a more strategic partner in an organization. I hope that all made sense. I'm still trying to make sense of it too. And I will continue to. That's what this content is, for us to make sense of these things and to evolve together. And so with that, let me know what you think. Feel free to share, to ask questions in the comments, talk through these things. I think we need to better understand them. And I will continue to create content that takes, I know that this is an abstract concept and I had to start here, but I will continue to create content that breaks down how you actually go about doing that. That's my vibe, right? I don't want to tell you, be a strategic user researcher, and then best wishes. I'm here to tell you, be a strategic researcher. This is how we do it. And I will be writing a book on this. So that's exciting. Out in 2025. I might put, if I'm able to, put a little wait list together for the book that I'm writing on this particular topic. So I hope that's helpful. Let's continue the conversation. As I said, the content will evolve, and I will also, for this podcast, be getting more guests on who can talk about things that I might not have any experience with. For instance, games user research, which I'm so excited to talk about. I wish I was a games user researcher. So anyways, please share. Please let me know what you think. Post in the comments. Talk through this. Ask me questions, because that helps with me guiding content of what people are wondering about or what people are confused about. And I look forward to talking to you very soon. And yeah, thank you so much.